The room was quiet, but it wasn't the peaceful kind of quiet. It was the kind that comes before something explodes. The kind of silence that settles in just before a storm tears the sky open. The town hall stage was glowing under intense studio lights, bright enough to blur the edges of everything in sight. Camera crews lined the perimeter, their red tally lights blinking steadily, recording, streaming, watching. In the center of it all stood a lone podium, and from behind the velvet curtains he stepped out. Donald J. Trump, former president showman and political juggernaut, walked onto the stage with his signature swagger, chin high, chest out, confidence in every stride. His navy suit was crisp, his red tie perfectly centered. He looked like a man ready for war, not words. The audience. They were still, watching, waiting. Some supporters wore red MAGA hats. Others, undecided voters, simply clutched their phones. But everyone knew this wasn't going to be a normal night. This was live television. And in Trump's world, anything could happen, especially when his legacy was on the line. And somewhere in the air, though no one said it out loud, you could feel it coming. That word, 72 hours earlier. It wasn't a rally. It wasn't a national address. It was just a quiet local interview inside a modest studio in Phoenix, Arizona. The lighting was soft, the setting simple. No crowd, no teleprompter, just two chairs, two people, and one loaded question. Barack Obama leaned back in his seat, hands folded in his lap, the same calm aura that carried him through 8 years in the White House still intact. Across from him, local anchor Julia Reyes asked the question that would soon light a match under the nation's political stage. If you had to describe the current administration in just one word, what would it be? Obama paused. He didn't shift uncomfortably. He didn't laugh it off. He let the silence linger. Then, without blinking, he answered, chaos. That was it. One word. No rant, no explanation. Not even a raised eyebrow. The silence after his answer lasted longer than the pause before it. Julia Reyes blinked, trying to follow up. But Obama just smiled faintly, leaned back and said, I think the American people know what I mean. By that evening, the clip had gone viral. By morning, it was a headline. And by the time Trump stepped on stage in Columbus, that single word was already echoing through the country like a warning siren. The question was simple. Mr. President, what do you say to former President Obama calling your administration chaos? But sometimes the simplest questions carry the heaviest weight. There was a pause, just 2 seconds, maybe 3. But in live television, that's an eternity. Trump's face tightened. His jaw shifted. He exhaled slowly through his nose, eyes scanning the crowd for signs of loyalty or threat. The moderator, veteran journalist Stephen Radcliffe, waited calmly, pen hovering above his notes. Then the explosion. Trump leaned forward, grabbing the microphone with both hands like it might fly away. Chaos, he snapped. That's what he said, Obama. Let me tell you something. And just like that, the temperature in the room spiked. The response wasn't measured. It wasn't thoughtful. It was fire and thunder, a verbal detonation fueled by pride, fury, and the undeniable sting of being labeled by a man who wasn't even in the room. Nobody has done more for this country than I have, nobody. We were handed a disaster, a total mess, and now he wants to call it chaos. Give me a break, the crowd stirred, a few cheers, some nervous shifting. Trump wasn't answering the question. He was launching a counterattack, and that's when it became clear the trap had worked. Obama didn't need to debate. He didn't even need to be present. All it took was one calm word spoken days earlier, and Trump had walked straight into the fire. Nobody has done more than me. Trump's voice thundered across the room like a war drum. He didn't just say it. He shouted it like he was trying to punch through the cameras and into every living room across America. There was a brief ripple of applause, sharp and scattered, mostly from the front rows where his die-hard supporters sat nodding, clapping, chanting, "That's right," under their breath. But beyond that silence, people shifted in their seats. Some exchanged uncertain glances. One man in a gray blazer gave a hesitant clap, then stopped midway, that eyes darting to the others around him. The crowd wasn't rallying. They were watching closely. Watching a man react not with control but with defiance. Watching a leader crumble beneath the weight of one single word. Trump wasn't defending a policy. He wasn't offering a vision. He was lashing out, swinging wildly as if trying to beat back the echo of Obama's voice still lingering in the room. His face flushed. His gestures became larger, more frantic. Every sentence louder than the last. They don't want to talk about what we've done. They want to take one word, just one word, and turn it into a headline. He pointed toward the media row. That's what you people do. You twist everything. You worship Obama like he's some kind of saint. Meanwhile, we've rebuilt this country, and just like that, the audience wasn't focused on the question anymore. They were focused on the outbursts. The first strike had been thrown. What started as a defense quickly turned into a barrage. Trump wasn't just responding anymore. He was attacking wildly without restraint. Obama left us with a disaster, 8 years of weakness. 8 years of failure. His voice cracked slightly, not from fatigue, but from rage. The media never talks about that. You people worship him. You turn his whispers into wisdom and my words into weapons. He jabbed a finger toward the journalists again. Then he pivoted hard toward the Democrats. And the Democrats don't even get me started. All they've done is block, lie, and cheat. They couldn't run a lemonade stand, let alone a government. The crowd shifted again. Some clapped, others looked confused, because no one had asked about the media. No one had asked about the Democrats. No one had even mentioned policy. The question was about one word, chaos, and yet Trump had launched into a monologue that spun further from the question with every sentence. Like a train off the rails, full steam ahead, with no clear direction, only noise. The moderator, Stephen Radcliffe, tried to interject once. "Mr. President, if I may," Trump cut him off. "No, you may not, I'm going to finish." And that's when the shift in the room became obvious. It wasn't just about disagreement anymore. It was about disconnection. Trump was no longer in a conversation. He was in a personal battle with ghosts, with critics, with shadows only he could see. The tension in the room was no longer simmering, it was boiling. The split was visual, audible, undeniable. In the front rows, Trump's loyalists were fired up. They clapped hard. Some stood. One man in a red windbreaker pumped his fist in the air, shouting, "Tell it like it is." "Mr. President," a woman with an American flag scarf wiped a tear from her eye as Trump's voice thundered through the hall. But just a few rows back, it was a different story. People were watching but not applauding. They held up their phones, recording in silence. Not because they supported him, because they were stunned. One teenager in a hoodie leaned toward his friend, whispering just loud enough for the mic to catch it, "Has proving Obama right. Every single word." His friend nodded, never taking her eyes off the stage thumbs, already typing the quote into her phone for TikTok. A middle-aged man with glasses glanced around, eyebrows raised, whispering to his wife, "Is this supposed to be presidential?" And still Trump raged on, oblivious to the widening crack beneath his feet. In the wings, one of his aides muttered to another, "We've lost the middle. He's not talking to America anymore, he's talking to himself." And that was the truth. Trump wasn't commanding the room. He was splitting it in two. Phoenix, Arizona. No crowd, no bright lights, no applause. Just a quiet studio, 2 chairs, and a single question waiting to be answered. Barack Obama sat with his legs crossed, hands calmly folded in his lap. Across from him sat local anchor Julia Reyes, a rising voice in Arizona journalism. Her tone was respectful but direct. She wasn't there for fluff. The interview had covered topics like foreign policy, the economy, and civic unity. But now came the moment that would shift everything. Julia glanced down at her note card, then looked up. "Mr. President," she said, "if you had to describe the current administration in just one word, what would it be?" Obama didn't blink. He leaned back ever so slightly, his expression thoughtful. Not smug, not annoyed, just still. Seconds passed. The silence wasn't awkward. It was heavy, like the calm before thunder. Then, without raising his voice, he answered, "Chaos." He didn't elaborate, didn't follow it up with criticism, didn't name names, just a slight pause, a faint smile. Julia hesitated, clearly caught off guard by the brevity. "Would you care to expand on that?" Obama gave a knowing look, the kind that didn't need explanation, and said, "I think the American people already know what I mean." That was it. And yet it was everything. Obama didn't launch a speech. He didn't tweet a thread. He didn't follow up with interviews, breakdowns, or bullet points. He said one word, then left the rest up to the country. And strangely, that silence made it louder. Across coffee shops and conference rooms, people leaned in, replaying that clip again and again. Not because of what was said, but because of what wasn't. There were no accusations, no shouting, no need for theatrical gestures. Just a calm tone and a heavy word. chaos. And that word, paired with Obama's refusal to explain it, did something extraordinary. It forced people to fill in the blanks themselves. And they did. Some remembered the midnight tweets that made the stock market nosedive. Others thought of the revolving door of White House staff, the sudden firings, the scandals that came and went like headlines on a ticker. Parents recalled trying to explain those press conference meltdowns to their kids. Veterans remembered allies being insulted on the world stage. Nurses thought of being promised help and watching none arrive. Obama didn't have to say all that. He didn't have to spell it out. He knew America already had the answers. It started with one clip, just 10 seconds long, just one word. But that 10 seconds, it spread like wildfire. A young producer posted it on Twitter with no caption, just the clip. Within an hour, it had 100,000 views. By midnight, it was trending. By dawn, it was in every newsroom from New York to Nevada. TikTok creators jumped in remixing Obama's calm delivery with dramatic music and text overlays. One word, that's all it took. Instagram Reels used split-screen edits, Obama's quiet chaos on one side, Trump's latest rally meltdown on the other. YouTube commentators titled videos, "Obama destroys Trump with one word, here's why it matters." Even the late-night shows couldn't resist. Jimmy Fallon cracked a joke. Obama said chaos and Trump's been screaming for 3 days straight. Coincidence? Stephen Colbert raised an eyebrow. One speaks in silence, the other screams in circles. In the public, they picked it up faster than the media. People started printing the word chaos on protest signs, bumper stickers, even T-shirts. What had started as a whisper in Phoenix had become a nationwide verdict. 2 men, 2 presidents, 2 completely different worlds. Barack Obama sat in a quiet studio, speaking with restraint, confidence, and weight behind every syllable. Donald Trump stood under hot lights pacing a stage, gesturing wildly, his voice rising with every sentence. Obama offered one word wrapped in silence. Trump unleashed 1,000 wrapped in fire. The contrast wasn't just in delivery, it was in philosophy. Obama's calm was deliberate. He trusted that the American people could connect the dots. He knew that leadership wasn't always about being the loudest voice in the room, but the most thoughtful one. Trump's approach, volume equals dominance. He believed the fight itself was the message. If someone punches, he punches harder. If someone whispers, he shouts. And if someone uses one word, he uses every word in the book twice. The question echoing through the media, the streets, and dinner tables across America was simple. Who's the real leader here? Is it the man who speaks softly and lets the silence speak for him, or the one who shouts over the silence because it terrifies him? 2 presidents. 2 very different Americas. This wasn't a town hall anymore. It wasn't a civic event. It wasn't even a discussion. It had become a battlefield, and Trump, he wasn't answering questions, he was swinging weapons. He leaned toward the cameras, jabbing his finger in the air, voice booming louder than the mic could handle. "You want chaos? I'll show you chaos." He was no longer speaking to the moderator, not to the crowd, not even to the American public. He was speaking to his own anger. His words blurred into rants. His sentences lost their shape. His gestures became more erratic, like someone wrestling with something invisible. The lights above the stage felt hotter. The audience stopped reacting. Even his loyal supporters quieted down, unsure if what they were watching was strength or a storm. "I fixed what he broke," Trump shouted. "And now he thinks he can judge me." With one word, it wasn't policy anymore. It wasn't leadership. It was a man fighting shadows louder and louder with every passing second. And the most chilling part, no one could stop him. Not the moderator, not his staff, not even himself. The town hall had become a war zone. He wasn't there. No Secret Service, no entourage, no spotlight. Barack Obama wasn't in the room, but he was everywhere. Every camera angle, every nervous glance, every shift in Trump's tone. The name Obama hadn't just entered the town hall, it had taken it over. And all it took was one word. The audience didn't need a reminder. They could feel it. Every time Trump raised his voice, every time he pointed a finger, every time his face flushed with frustration, they weren't just watching a man react. They were watching a man unravel in the shadow of someone who wasn't even present. Obama had become the ghost in the room. Not because he tried to haunt it, but because Trump couldn't stop summoning him again and again and again. Obama this, Obama that. He failed. "I fixed it," he said, chaos. It didn't matter what the topic was. The former president had said one word, and the current one couldn't stop chasing it. And that was the moment it became obvious this wasn't a town hall anymore. It was a crisis of identity, Trump versus Obama, not on stage together, but in one man's mind. And only one of them needed to be physically present to win. By the next morning, it wasn't just political analysts who were talking. It was everyone. In Phoenix, the same city where the word was first spoken, a cafe buzzed with chatter. Two retirees sat by the window, coffee steaming between them. One scrolled through the video on his phone and shook his head. He really lost it, over one word. His friend replied without looking up. Makes you wonder, what would he do in a real crisis? In Sacramento, a high school civics class streamed the town hall as part of their discussion on leadership. The teacher paused the video just as Trump shouted, "I fixed what he broke." A student in the back raised her hand. Why does he sound more angry than in control? No one answered, but many nodded. Meanwhile, in a Detroit auto plant, workers gathered in the break room before their shift. The union leader leaned back in his chair and muttered, "I don't care if you love him or hate him, but if one word can set him off like that, that's not strength. That's something else." The others fell quiet. The word chaos had left the building. It had left the broadcast. It was now in conversations between everyday Americans in homes, classrooms, barbershops, break rooms, and sidewalks. And the question wasn't about politics anymore. It was about trust. If one word can throw him off balance like that, what happens when it's not a word, but a war? By lunchtime the next day, America wasn't just talking. It was choosing sides. Talk radio stations lit up with callers. Twitter was a war zone of opinions. Facebook threads turned into digital shouting matches between old high school friends and distant cousins. And everywhere, two clear camps emerged. Camp 1, the defenders. He's strong, he fights back, he's not afraid to speak his mind. To them, Trump's outburst was a sign of power, a refusal to be bullied. They admired the fire, the pushback, the passion. Finally, a president who doesn't take crap from anyone. Camp 2, the alarmed. That wasn't leadership, that was emotional collapse. If one calm word makes him melt down, how can he handle real pressure? To them, Trump's response wasn't strength, it was fragility disguised as fury. They didn't see a commander. They saw a man rattled by silence. And this division wasn't quiet. It was loud, emotional, and everywhere from living rooms to locker rooms. Even news anchors reflected the split. Some praised Trump's defiance. Others said flatly a single word made him explode. That's not presidential. That's personal. So now the question wasn't just who said what it was, what kind of leadership do we believe in? Obama didn't post, didn't tweet, didn't go on CNN or MSNBC. He didn't even write a follow-up statement. He simply let it be. In that silence, it spoke louder than any speech. Every day, more people rewatched the clip. That one word chaos, no shouting, no insults, no drama, just clarity. Commentators called it a masterclass in restraint. Veterans called it the posture of real leadership. Young voters called it a flex of pure composure. Meanwhile, Trump's rants kept airing on loop. His voice echoed across every channel. But somehow the quiet clip, just one calm word, continued to overshadow the shouting. A well-known journalist tweeted Obama didn't have to say anything more because Trump did the rest of the talking, and all of it proved Obama's point. In a world that rewards volume and outrage, Obama's silence became the loudest sound in America. Inside the West Wing, the air was thick, tension wrapped around every corner of the Situation Room. Trump's top advisors were already seated, eyes darting, phones buzzing, voices hushed but fast. One aide whispered what everyone feared. "We can't stop the word. Every time he repeats it, it gets stronger." Kellyanne Conway looked pale. Stephen Miller was pacing. Dan Scavino was scrolling frantically through Twitter, watching chaos trend worldwide. "We need to shift the narrative. Now, should we release a statement?" No more attention. That's what they want. Then what? Silence. Every time Trump hit back, called Obama weak, or the media corrupt, he only amplified the word. He was fighting fire with gasoline, and they all knew it. Sir, one advisor said cautiously, "This might be bigger than Benghazi, maybe even bigger than Kofi." Trump waved him off, red-faced, breathing heavy. "I will not let that guy win with just one word." But deep down, even they saw it. The more he roared, the more chaos echoed. It started as a whisper. Then it became a hashtag. Now it was a headline. Chaos. The word was everywhere. Cable news flashed it across banners. Late-night hosts built entire monologues around it. Editorials used it like a stamp. Trump's town hall chaos, chaos in the West Wing Americas, chaos presidency. Polls came in. In a nationwide survey of 10 voters, people were asked, what's the one word you'd use to describe President Trump's administration? Top answer, chaos. By a landslide. It wasn't just a word anymore. It was a brand, an identity, a verdict. Trump tried to spin it. Chaos means action, he tweeted. It means disruption, change. That's what I do. But the tone had already shifted. People weren't hearing change. They were hearing danger, unpredictability, instability. The word had stuck, like a scar. And no matter how loud he shouted, chaos was now the label that he couldn't peel off. The backdrop said economic progress. The teleprompter was set for jobs, infrastructure, and growth. But the nation only wanted one thing. Trump walked out confidently, flanked by advisors, tight-tightened grin forced. He stood behind the podium like it was a shield. Today we're seeing historic job numbers. A reporter's hand shot up. Mr. President, do you agree with President Obama's use of the word chaos to describe your administration? Boom, there it was, again. Trump paused, just for a second. But on live TV, that second felt like eternity. That's a stupid question. We're winning in every way. Only losers see chaos, but it was too late. The headline had already written itself. Trump deflects on chaos question again. President avoids Obama's one-word verdict. It didn't matter the topic anymore. Every press conference, every rally, every tweet, Mr. President, what about chaos? He tried to shift gears, talked about the stock market, border control, military strength. But the follow-ups kept coming. Is your leadership stable? Why does chaos seem to follow your administration? Is Obama right? Trump was trapped, not by enemies, not by Democrats, not even by Obama, but by one word that he couldn't shake. There was truly no escape. This was never just about Trump, and it was never just about Obama. It was about all of us. Because in that one moment when one man responded with silence and the other with rage, the stage became a mirror. When someone criticizes us, do we breathe or do we burst? Do we listen or do we attack? Do we control the moment or let it control us? Obama said just one word. No insult, no shouting, just chaos. Trump exploded. But here's the truth. We've all been Trump at some point. We've all felt exposed, offended, called out. We've all had the choice, grace or reaction. And maybe that's why this story struck so deep. Because it's not just political drama. It's a parable about pride, ego, and how fragile power really is. And in the silence, we all heard the truth we didn't want to admit. True strength doesn't need to scream. It doesn't need to dominate every headline. It doesn't need to crush the room with noise. Obama knew that. That's why he said one word, then stopped. He trusted the American people to think for themselves. He trusted silence to do the work. He trusted composure to outlast chaos. Trump, on the other hand, believed the opposite. The louder he was, the stronger he thought he appeared. But the truth was obvious. The more he shouted, the more he revealed the cracks. The more he insisted on control, the more he showed he didn't have any. And so the contrast became undeniable. One man gained influence by saying less. The other lost credibility by saying too much. Leadership is not measured in decibels. It is measured in discipline. And history remembers not the volume of the noise, but the weight of the silence. In the end, people didn't remember every word Trump shouted. They didn't recall each insult, each rant, each deflection, because noise fades, but truth lingers. What America remembered was simple. Obama said one word, chaos, and Trump spent every minute on live TV proving him right. In Phoenix, it was spoken calmly. In Columbus, it exploded violently. The contrast was so sharp, so undeniable, that it seared itself into memory. Parents told their children, see, sometimes silence is stronger than shouting. Teachers repeated it in classrooms. Workers repeated it in break rooms. Friends repeated it over coffee. And history itself began to whisper the same echo. Strength is calm, weakness is loud. The moral was clear, not about politics, not about party, but about us, about leadership, about humanity. One word can expose pride, one reaction can reveal character. And long after the cameras stopped rolling, the echo remained chaos. In the end, this story isn't just about politics. It's about life. When we face criticism, we always have two choices. We can react with anger, letting our emotions control us, or we can pause, stay calm, and let the truth speak for itself. Real strength is not found in shouting louder than everyone else. Real strength is in restraint, in discipline, in the courage to stay composed when the world expects you to break. Because in life, just like in leadership, it's not the noise people remember. It's the clarity. It's the dignity. It's the one moment of calm that outlasts 1,000 storms. So ask yourself, when the test comes, will you be the one who explodes or the one who endures? If this story made you think, if it opened your eyes, or if it reminded you of the power of truth, then don't just watch. Hit subscribe to join us at Mr. Expo's Stories, where we uncover the hidden lessons behind the headlines, the speeches, and the scandals. Stories that don't just inform you, but transform the way you see the world. Because the truth deserves to be told, and you deserve to hear it.